The Sacramento District Attorney's Office has released a criminal complaint and the arrest warrant into the downtown Sacramento shooting. That shooting took place just over a month ago. It left 6 people dead. The DA has now filed multiple homicide charges against the 3 suspects, Smiley and DeAndre Martin and Matula Payton. Fox 40's Rowena Shaddix joining us live from downtown Sacramento with more on that detailed court filing. Row.
Well, Eric, it was surveillance video from businesses around this area, along with cell phone video and tips from the public that helped the district attorney to build her case. In a 46-page arrest warrant, complete with surveillance images, investigators meticulously outline a timeline before, during, and after the K Street shooting downtown on April 3rd, which left 6 people dead and injured a dozen others.
This was a gun battle between rival gang members who came armed to this scene in downtown Sacramento, and innocent bystanders died.
Sacramento County District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert announced that homicide charges were filed against suspects Smiley and DeAndre Martin and Matula Payton, along with enhancements for using a fully automatic 9mm handgun. They're also charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm and having prior felony convictions. According to the document, at approximately 1:32 a.m., Matula Payton and DeVazier Turner left the District 30 nightclub and walked across the street toward the group that included Joshua Hoy, Smiley Martin, and DeAndre Martin. This is the first image which shows the first meeting interaction of the 2 groups that were allegedly involved in the shooting. It's still unclear what caused the dispute between the 2 rival gangs, which led to the gunfight.
Guns and gangs are fully entrenched in this.
At 1:57, Joshua Hoy, who was among the 6 who later died, is recorded standing next to Smiley Martin while raising his right arm parallel to the ground and pointing towards Matula Payton and DeVazier Turner's group. It appears Hoy is holding a dark object in his hand consistent with a firearm, as shown in the image. Detectives observed multiple muzzle flashes coming from the area where DeVazier Turner and Sergio Harris were standing. Seconds after, Smiley Martin fires north. Surveillance images shows Matula Payton shoot south indiscriminately as he runs north on 10th Street. The volley of gunfire was mostly around Sharif Jewelers.
More than 100 casings were found on scene from handguns of 2 different calibers. We also know that there were at least 5 shooters and that one of them used a stolen handgun with full auto capabilities and a high-capacity magazine.
Around 2:02 a.m., Smiley Martin was recorded discarding a Glock fully automatic handgun with a 30-round extended magazine into a front alcove along K Street. Within 3 minutes, 5 people were hit with gunfire. The body of a homeless woman was discovered later. Through social media posts by the suspected gang members, investigators were able to identify the men involved who were wearing the same clothing in the surveillance images. And the district attorney says it'll take a lot more investigation if she plans on charging those suspects with the 12 who were injured but survived. Reporting here in Sacramento, Rowena Shaddix, Fox 40.
Sacramento police need your help tracking down a new suspect in that deadly downtown shooting.
We've identified another shooter in the K Street shooting. 27-year-old Matula Payton has been identified as one of the shooters in the investigation.
You heard it first on ABC 10 as breaking news on the news at 5. And new at 11, I'm talking to Sacramento police as they provide more information about the search for a 3rd suspect in that K Street gang shootout.
He's considered armed and dangerous, but we're asking the community for their assistance.
Matula Payton is wanted on multiple felony warrants, including domestic violence and gun charges. 6 people were killed in the shootout on April 3rd. At least 5 shooters from 2 different gangs are believed to be involved. And keep in mind, the Martin brothers are already behind bars in connection to the case. Police say DeAndre Martin is a suspected shooter. And new tonight, Sacramento police say his brother, Smiley Martin, is also a suspected shooter. Sergeant Zach Eden telling me, based on evidence recovered at the scene, they now feel confident Payton was a shooter as well.
We're still looking at how many shooters there actually was, there may be more than 5 shooters. We have information at this point to say that there is at least 5 shooters.
Are you concerned about any retaliatory shootings?
Yeah, in a case like this, when you have significant gang involvement, we are concerned about retaliation shootings. But we don't have any information, specific information to say that there is a retaliation shooting coming.
But of course, that's all the more reason why you want to try to get these suspects into custody.
Absolutely, and that's again why we stepped up our officer staffing, not only downtown, but in the areas that are affected by our city that are primarily affected by certain gangs being in certain areas of the city. Or anybody with any information related to Mr. Payton's whereabouts, to please call us and let us know, because he needs to be taken into custody for his warrants.
If you have any information, police ask that you call Crime Stoppers. You can remain anonymous. You can also scan the QR code on your screen to provide tips or video evidence in the K Street.
While lying in bed, she heard the sound of several gunshots.
Sacramento police detectives describing what witnesses told them happened in the early morning hours of April 3rd, 2022 on K Street in downtown Sacramento during a deadly shooting that claimed 6 lives. The 3 suspected shooters, brothers Smiley and DeAndre Martin, as well as Mtula Payton, sitting in court Friday as police recounted their conversations with people staying at the Citizen Hotel located right near the shooting scene. One woman inside her hotel room at the time telling detectives that she saw someone, later identified as Mtula Payton, firing a gun multiple times toward 10th and K Streets as he ran away.
She stated that she saw a male in a white hooded sweatshirt. She stated that when she looked out the window that she could see the person firing the gun and saw the muzzle flashes.
Another woman, also staying at the Citizen Hotel, told police that she noticed things were getting dicey even before shots were fired.
She explained it as being a chaotic type environment. She said when she was planning on going to London nightclub, she noticed several fights that were taking place, police activity. So she kind of had this feeling in the air that something bad was going to happen.
That witness also described a man, later identified as Sergio Harris, walking to a car parked nearby, taking an item from it believed to be a gun, and walking, quote, with a purpose.
About 2 to 5 minutes later is when she began to hear gunshots.
Harris is one of the 6 people killed in the shooting, but is not considered a victim because prosecutors say he was involved in the gunfight. A Sacramento police forensic investigator says she collected 282 pieces of evidence and more than 100 cartridge cases from the scene. She also checked people for gunshot residue.
I used a GSR kit, a gunshot residue kit. Each kit has 4 vials. Each vial has a sticky adhesive.
Late this afternoon, we also heard more about the gunshot residue collected at the scene from an expert with the Sacramento County District Attorney's Crime Lab. Reporting from Sacramento, Orkomana, KCRA 3 News.
The preliminary hearing is set to pick back up February 9th. Prosecutors tell us we will hear directly from people who witnessed the shooting.
Eric, in the courtroom today, we heard from Sacramento police detectives and a gun residue forensics expert. They were both questioned by the prosecution and the defense teams, again, in that courtroom today. Now, the 3 suspects, Mtula Payton, Smiley Martin, and DeAndre Martin, all present in the courtroom as lawyers cross-examined these officials. The detectives talked about their investigation right after the shooting, fingerprinting bodies on scene, and interviewing witnesses who allegedly saw the shooting happen. You'll remember 6 people died and 12 people were shot in what the Sacramento police chief called a gang-related gunfight back on April 3rd of 2022. One detective detailing an interview with a witness who was staying with her husband in the Citizen Hotel on the 2nd floor, talking about watching a group of people crowding around a car on 10th and J around the time of the shooting. She allegedly saw someone grabbing what looked like a gun from a car there on that corner, walking with intent, they said, toward 10th and K, then firing shots and making their way back to the car before driving off.
She stated that when she looked out the window that she could see the person firing the gun and saw the muzzle flashes.
Did she tell you how many times she saw Mr. Payton firing?
She believed it was about 4 or 5 times.
Back out here live, that forensics expert we talked about, she explained looking through some gun residue evidence that was on some of the victims' hands of that shooting. She also talked about some of the gun residue that came from some of the suspects' hands. We also know that the jury has not yet been seated. They have not chosen a jury yet. This is just a preliminary hearing, so the court case will continue next month. And of course, we will be there. You can find our complete coverage on our website at fox40.com. Live in front of the Sacramento County Courthouse, covering local news that matters, I'm Zach Boetto.
Businesses are coming together to try to heal in the entertainment district that includes owners of a store that had a view of the violence. It's close to where one of the victims chose to sleep Saturday night before she was shot dead.
CBS 13's Madison Keevy is live on 10th Street with the space noticeably empty the past few nights. Madison?
Yeah, Curtis, this is the block of 10th Street where Melinda Davis chose to sleep for more than a decade. It's just outside of Bloom Decor Florist here. The owner says this was the last place she saw Melinda last week and says that she's hoping to bring some healing to this community, all through free bouquets of flowers.
Flowers have a healing capacity. I mean, they always do. I mean, there's nothing more healing than giving somebody a flower.
10th Street needs to heal. Lizette Arnold owns Bloom Decor. The chaos Sunday played out feet from her storefront. These flowers are free. The sign says it all, in memory of those lost. One of those, Melinda Davis.
She was always happy and cheerful and part of our area, and everybody kind of feels really sad about that.
Davis lived unhoused just outside of Bloom. She was in the area last Sunday when chaos broke out and she was killed in crossfire. Arnold remembers the last time she saw Davis, a week ago today.
She was sitting in front of the door or in front of the shop, and she said, "Do you have a purple rose?" I said, "Yeah, I have a purple rose." So she came in and she got a purple rose. So, but any flower for Melinda was fine. That's what she really knew most of the time.
Purple roses set out in her memory, near the space she was known and loved for more than a decade.
Those purple roses now make up some of the bouquets that are set out that have been donated by wholesalers and community members here today. This bucket has not sat empty the entire week, and the hope is to bring just a little bit of light and healing to this area. And this is not the only place you'll find flowers. Coming up tonight at 5, I'll take you to a bookstore just around the corner with a bouquet very similar and a story of saving lives.
Right now, 2 years since Sacramento's deadliest shooting, and today, as the victims are remembered, 3 suspects are back in court for another day of testimony in their preliminary hearing. K Street was packed with people enjoying a night out at the clubs when gunfire erupted on April 3rd, 2022.
And 6 people were killed on that early morning, and police say 3 of them were men involved in the shooting. The other 3 were innocent women: 21-year-old Gentaya Alexander, 21-year-old Yamil Martinez Andrade, and 57-year-old Melinda Davis, who lived on the streets of downtown.
She was just here to have a good time with her sister, and unfortunately that good time turned to tragedy, and I miss my daughter dearly. It's not a second go by that I don't think about my daughter.
And now, 2 years later, the case against 3 accused gunmen continues to unfold. And today, inside the courtroom, they were back listening to witness testimony.
And the focus today was on Sergio Harris, one of the people who was killed, and what role he played leading up to that shooting. KCRA 3's Orko Manna has been inside the courtroom all day. Orko, things got a little heated today.
Yeah, Ty, there was a lot of back and forth inside the courtroom today between the defense attorneys and Ike Harris. He's Sergio Harris's cousin, who was with Sergio the night and the early morning hours of this shooting. And today was Ike's second day testifying. Now here's some video from inside the courtroom. The 3 accused gunmen in this case, brothers Smiley and DeAndre Martin, as well as Mtula Payton, sat in court as Ike Harris spoke. We're not allowed to show him, but a lot of the focus today was on if Sergio had had a gun that night and what happened to that gun. Across the board, the defense attorneys grilled Ike about his police interview with detectives the summer after the shooting. They claim he lied to detectives, saying Sergio did not have a gun because he wanted to paint Sergio, who he was extremely close with, in a good light. The defense tries to get Ike to admit to lying to police when he said someone named 5 Star got rid of the gun. Take a listen to this heated exchange between Ike and DeAndre Martin's attorney.
When the cops are talking to you about where's the gun, you make up a story and tell them that 5 Star took the gun, correct?
Oh yeah, correct.
So that's not some secondhand, that's just a story you made up, correct?
No, but no.
Well, where'd that story come from if you didn't make it up?
Secondhand.
Secondhand from what? You're the one who's there. You never saw 5 Star. Why would you say he was there?
Secondhand.
So, I know,
Internet.
Please explain. That makes no sense.
I remember holding my cousin that night. I don't remember specifics of that night. I do not recall.
Yeah, and that was just one of many heated exchanges inside the courtroom between DeAndre Martin's attorney and Ike Harris. It's important to note, as you guys mentioned, Sergio Harris is not considered a victim in this case because the investigators say that he was involved in that gun battle that happened 2 years ago today. Reporting live in Sacramento, Orca Manna, KCRA 3 News.
And Orca, what other evidence came up in court today?
Yeah, well, just a couple hours ago at the very end of today's court proceeding, we saw some surveillance video footage from the intersection of 10th and K Streets showing the moments leading up to that shooting, and also the focus on the mood of the atmosphere of the area, as well as the mood of Sergio Harris. You're going to see some of that video coming up tonight.
And that breaking news is in Sacramento. KCRA has learned one of the suspects charged in the deadly K Street shooting died this morning in jail. Smiley Martin was found dead in a cell. Martin is one of 3 men accused in the April 2022 shooting. His brother is in jail for the case as well. KCRA 3's Catalina Estrada joins us live from outside the Sacramento County Jail. Catalina, what have we learned so far about this?
Yeah, Brittany, Smiley Martin's defense team confirmed his death and said they've been in contact with Jail Command, who's doing an investigation. In a statement, public defender Norman Dawson said in part, quote, "It is most tragic that Mr. Martin passed away fighting to defend his innocence in the preliminary hearing process. Mr. Martin's defense team sends our deepest condolences to his family, and we are here to support the family going forward," end quote. Earlier today, the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office said it is investigating the death of an inmate who we have now learned is Martin. The Sheriff's Office says deputies were doing a cell check at around 2:15 this morning when they found a 29-year-old man unresponsive inside a cell. Despite life-saving efforts, the inmate died at the jail, but the Sheriff's Office says the man had been in custody since April 20th, 2022. Officials are now investigating his cause of death, and this is obviously, Brittany, still a developing story, and there are still questions as to how this happened, and as we learn those answers, we'll make sure to bring them to you. Live in Sacramento, Carolina Estrada, KCRA 3 News. Back to you.
Carolina, thank you.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Been kind of mixing and matching, doing a lot of different topics. We're going to be continuing with that theme. We're going to be covering a shooting that happened in Sacramento in 2022, K Street massacre. The K Street shooting happened April 3rd, 2022 at around 2 a.m. downtown Sacramento, California. 6 people were killed, 12 were injured. It was a shootout basically between Bloods and Crips members that would come to light. And what made this so infamous, right, was because there was a lot of surveillance, right? There's a lot of videos showing kind of before the shooting happened, as it happened. There were tweets and there were videos of people scattering and running. There were 5 suspected shooters. Just the sheer amount of violence. I believe police recovered like 114 shells. Just absolutely insane. So shooting occurred around 2 a.m. in the area of 10th Street and K Street, just blocks away from the California State Capitol and the Golden One Center. One suspect continued shooting as he ran north on 10th Street towards J Street. Police officers nearby heard the gunshots, immediately respond. It damaged so much. Vehicles, buildings, 6 people killed, a dozen more injured. That's a lot. That's a lot of carnage, right? That's probably a pretty good word for it. And then on Twitter, a video was circulating showing people running down the street and rapid gunfire being heard in the background. Another video, a large group of people can be seen surrounding 2 people fighting when gunfire breaks out behind them. And obviously California in this area, Bloods, Crips, it kind of goes hand in hand. But again, this was a really popular area, popular nightlife area. A lot of innocent people were hanging out, and it's not just like, you always hear in the news a child or somebody catches a stray from a drive-by shooting. Everybody was catching bullets. If you were in the area, it didn't matter. You had a chance to get hit. According to Sacramento Police Department Chief Kathy Lesser, it was initially unclear if the shooting was connected to a particular venue or event. She also said there was a fight immediately prior to the shooting. Kathy Lester goes on to say that there were multiple shooters whom the police are seeking. And I believe a few of those shooters actually ended up being victims. Like at first they weren't sure. Then it came out a couple of them were actually shooters. We'll get into that a little bit here. There were 6 fatalities in the shooting, 3 men, 3 women. A 38-year-old man was the first dead person whose identity was released on the night of the shooting. The other victims were identified by the Sacramento County Coroner's Office early the next morning, with the dead ranging in ages between 21 and 57 years old. Excuse me. Another 12 people suffered from varied degrees of injury. 4 were taken to the trauma unit at UC Davis Medical Center, 5 to Sutter Medical Center. Another 2 people injured in the shooting walked into the Sutter Medical Center around 2:55 a.m. and another was by ambulance. Could have been a lot worse when you think about the sheer amount of people that were there, but still, this was a massacre. This wasn't a shooting. Massacre fits this. Immediately after the shooting, police closed the area bounded by 9th, 13th, L and J Streets and called the public to avoid the area. Duh, right? And immediately the police were reaching out for help to the public. Okay, there's a lot of surveillance. This is one of those cases that is going to be solved. This is kind of one of those things where it takes effort, but with all the resources out there, the public outrage, police are going to figure out who did this. The ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, was called in to assist. And then as kind of the scene clears, police end up recovering 2 guns, 1 stolen. Then they confirm multiple shooters. And the streets actually opened up the day after the shooting, and they recovered 114 used bullet shells at the crime scene and identified several buildings and vehicles that had been hit. Now, go to April 4th, right? Told you it didn't take much time. 3 suspects. Dondre Stephen Martin, born June 7th, 1995, a 26-year-old male. He'd been arrested. Suspicion of assault, possession of handgun that was found at the scene, possession of a firearm by a prohibited person. Now, Dondre had streamed himself Saturday night prior to the shooting, brandishing a handgun. So they were able to kind of tie all this in. A lot of these guys, they had priors, they had other convictions. We're going to get into another one. Davion Dawson, a 30-year-old man who was also arrested. Police recovered a gun with Dawson's arrest, but due to the firearm type, it was not believed that the gun was used in the shooting. He was subsequently released the following day after posted $500,000 bail. He was seen carrying a gun after the shooting, but it's not charged with being involved in the shooting. And then we get to the one that we're kind of all hearing about, Smiley Allen Martin, born July 9th, 1994, 27-year-old brother of Dondre, so they're about a year apart, damn near exactly a year apart, was the second suspect arrested. Both Dondre and Smiley were residents of Phoenix, Arizona, and both had a lot of criminal history going back in Arizona, going back 8-9 years. In 2018, Smiley was sentenced to 10 years, and get this is interesting. Smiley was set to do 10 years for domestic violence, but was released in February 2022. So we're talking months before the shooting happened. Both Martin brothers had been injured in the shooting. He was later charged with possession of a machine gun as a Glock 19 handgun with device that allows, so he had a switch, right? You guys hear all about the switches in the gangs. They convert a already deadly gun into a killing machine, full automatic, and that will spray. And that's how you get 114 bullets. And then on April 6th, police said that they believe at least 5 shooters were involved. While police did not have a precise motive for the shooting, they considered it gang-related. It is increasingly clear that gang violence is at the center of this tragedy. While we cannot confirm at this time or elaborate on the precise gang affiliation of individuals involved, gangs and gang violence are inseparable from the events that drove these shootings, according to law enforcement. One side of the shooting had ties to the Crips, while the other side had ties to the Bloods, and it all fits. And like I said, gang violence had been a problem in Sacramento for several years prior to the shooting, with a spat of shootings in 2017. The city tried to step up, dump a bunch of money into the project, into trying to combat gang violence. And then, April 12th, right, this guy lasted the longest without being identified. A 4th suspect was identified, 27-year-old Matula Tashambre Payton, also born in 1994. So all these guys are around the same age. A resident from Vegas. Police indicated that Payton was involved in the shooting and called on the public to provide information of his whereabouts. Now, this is what I'm talking about, where some of them had been killed, okay? Some of the shooters had been killed. 3 of them killed. They announced this on April 16th. 3 of the people killed in the shooting were involved in a gang dispute, and at least one of them had fired a weapon back. May 3rd, Smiley, and then you go fast forward, we jump forward to May. Now they're all rounded up. Smiley Martin, Dondre Martin, brothers, Matula Payton were charged with murder for the deaths of Jonte Alexander, Melinda Davis, and Yamil Martinez Andrade. They were not charged with murder for the deaths of the other people because those people were believed to be involved in the gunfight that led to the deaths of the bystanders. And then you saw that Smiley Martin died in jail on June 8th, 2024. Now, I will quickly give you the names of the 3 that they believe were involved in the shooting. Not just victims that believe were involved in the shooting and got shot back. Those 3 were Sergio Harris, Joshua Hoy Lucchese, and Devazia Turner. Harris 38, Lucchese 32, Turner 29. And, I mean, yeah, they're victims in a way. But if you were shooting back, and it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going down there to get into it like that, you know what's going to happen. So, I just really, really wanted to get this story out there because I honestly was doing research for the next video and this popped up and I was like, man, it had a lot of good news stories. And, yeah, so there you guys have it. 2022 K Street Massacre, Sacramento, California. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.